Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Left Wing. I am TJ Whitehead, powers taken, not given, joined as always by John Cooper of Counterpoint Politics. We have ourselves returning guest, Superman Todd, and brand new guest, Keegan Tatum. Todd, we'll start with you. How are you doing today, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Just living life in a new country now.
Well, yeah, what are you going to do, right? What are you going to do? We knew this was a possibility, and now here we are. Keegan, how about yourself?
I'm doing moderately decent.
Yeah,
no superlatives.
Yeah, we're all a good 50-degree day. I think we can all kind of see ourselves going here. You know, not terrible, but not amazing here. So, all right, we got quite a few topics to go over today. But the first we're gonna tackle what the hell happened during the election back on November 5th. So we'll go ahead and start with you, Keegan. I think you requested this topic here. What were your thoughts going into the election? Like, what was your prediction, and were you surprised or were you vindicated in what you believed would happen?
I was surprised. This breaks my streak of every election being correct in a row. So I reserve this election on a personal level. I think the lessons to learn are, first off, that moderates are not more electable. Joe Biden, corporate-friendly centrist, massively underperformed during a pandemic with a historically unpopular incumbent. Hillary Clinton, corporate-friendly centrist, lost. Barack Obama ran. Campaign rhetoric was as a progressive populist. He won overwhelmingly by turning out the base instead of alienating the base. And you can even go back to John Kerry and Al Gore, who were corporate-friendly centrists, and what did they do? Lose. Democrats need to learn the lesson, and the media needs to learn the lesson, that centrists, that moderates, are not more electable. The strategy of spending millions of dollars trying to court moderate Republicans is ridiculous, outdated. Get back to the 70s. The same 5% of Republicans that voted for Kamala Harris voted for Joe Biden in 2020. So I'd say that's the first thing that needs to be learned. And then the second one, John, I've seen you harp on this, which is right-wing media is so much more funded online than we are on the left. Like, we get no backing. Like, I can tell you from my level of following, and you can find me at Keegan Tatum on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube.
Love it.
And I can tell you with my political psychology videos that I would be getting funding if I was a right-wing commentator. I would be getting that sweet, sweet corporate sugar daddy money. We get no help. No Democrats even come on our shows. They don't bring the connections with them like the Republican politicians when they go on right-wing online media. So I would say those are the two big ones. Run a populist campaign, people. Like, this is not that complicated. It keeps winning.
I love it. We'll go to you next, Todd. Well, what were your thoughts going into the election and your thoughts afterward?
I was shocked too. I don't know if my takeaways would be the same. I think it's very possible those are the takeaways. It's also very possible that they're not. I think one of the takeaways for me is if you have tons of people in your country who think that the economy is bad when it's actually good, there's no messaging that can really overcome that. I think I do agree there's major problems with the left and right-wing media. You know, right-wing media is all hell Trump. He can do no wrong. And even middle of the road, independent supposed media they always vote Republican anyway when it comes down to it. And then on the left side of media, we still beat the shit out of Democrats all the time too. So Democrats are getting hit from both sides of the media all the time. I'm not optimistic. I'm really not optimistic. I don't feel like there's a real easy way to go from here.
Mm-hmm.
I respect people who have opinions on it. I think it's very possible that any of them are right, but at the same time, we ran a dude who tried to overthrow the government. We ran a dude who actually was a traitor.
Yeah.
And we found out there's no real line in the sand. If you got people who think that the price of gas during a global pandemic when the global economy was crashing was good, there's no way to convince those people that those prices aren't coming back. It's been a rough couple of weeks, honestly.
Yeah.
And I think I saw one the other day that the whole left wing, right wing media thing. I think it was Como was talking. He was on some podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and he said he wrote his brother in the election. Like he didn't even vote for Harris. He voted in his brother. You got Bill Maher, who shits on Trump every night and then turns around and shits on Democrats too. So I don't know what the answer is. I'm just a normal guy, and I think our country might be screwed regardless from this point forward.
I'm not quite as pessimistic. Honestly, I'm not. It is bad because I will admit I was shocked too. I think all four of us were at this point. It's that, and it's not so much that I believe that Harris was running this gangbusters, murderers row campaign that, you know, she was spot on. I thought she did a decent enough job given the time she was given, like 3 months to run a campaign. John and I had plenty of critiques on this. Keegan, you mentioned a major one. The obsession with trying to win over Republicans we thought was a mistake from the get-go. Like, why would you expect Republicans to ever vote for you? And campaigning with them was awful. But I think, I can't speak for everybody here, but what Todd said is what I thought, no matter how, like, not necessarily galvanizing Harris's campaign would have been, Donald Trump was the other end of the ticket, was on the other end of the line there. And I thought for sure the American people, after January 6th, after 91 criminal indictments, after 34 convictions, after being found criminally liable for rape, like you name it. It's like anything that, after the eating the dogs, eating the cats, they say, okay, this is it. There's no way your average American is going to go out and vote for this guy. Wrong. I was dead wrong. Like pretty much the same number as last time. Said, yeah, actually, we're fine with them. And a lot of it comes down to that. I hate saying the living in a bubble thing, but I was aware that I'm in a left-wing ecosphere. I know that. That wasn't a surprise to me. But I was honestly trying to think of from someone's point of view who didn't pay a whole lot of attention to politics, but was, I don't know, casually aware of what was going on in the world and that they would reject Trump. No, turns out I was dead wrong on that. John, well, I know where your thoughts are going, and you were a little surprised too. But what are your conclusions afterward?
Yeah, so I think that all three of you have brought up great points, and I think I was also in your boat, TJ, where I just thought people would see the truth of Trump because it's so clear. But the problem is, it's not that we're living in a left-wing bubble. It's that we're living in a bubble of people who pay attention. Yeah. And that is not the people who decided this race. The people who decided this race were people who mostly do not. Everyone who, like, not everyone, but like it was something like 70% of people who followed political news closely voted for Harris. The vast majority of Trump supporters didn't even know what they were voting for. Yeah. And that is damning. And it is in my opinion, kind of what Keegan said, a failure of Democrats to get in front of the kinds of people who don't listen to traditional media outlets about political news. And on top of that, I think that the way they've gone about their messaging is the exact kind of thing that Donald Trump wins against. And they've done it for the past 3 elections now. And it really is very frustrating that they haven't figured it out, that all Donald Trump has is this anti-establishment mindset. And he attracts people that way because, like him or not, when you listen to Donald Trump talk, you don't have to know anything about the news, anything about what he's talking about. You listen to him talk and you're like, I believe that dude means what he's saying. You don't have to know that it's true. You don't have to know if he's like telling the truth or lying, but you know he's George Costanza. It's not a lie if you believe it. And Donald Trump seemed to believe what he was saying. On the other side, Democrats have continued to just not feel that way. You listen, you don't have to know anything. You listen to Kamala Harris talk, you listen to Joe Biden talk, and you hear establishment, politician. They don't really believe what they're talking about. That's just politician talk. And it's so clear. You don't have to know anything about anything. You hear 3 words and you immediately recognize it. And Democrats haven't learned that lesson. And I think that is a really important lesson to learn that I don't know if they're going to.
I have a few things that I would like to add to that. So first off, what you're getting on is like, it's so much about not what you say or what you're running on, but how you say it.
Exactly.
And people are sick of scripted politicians because when you sound scripted, you sound inauthentic. And if you're just kind of lazy and you just have like the TV on in the background, you're just like, oh, well, Trump at least sounds genuine. I mean, he's rambling like a crazy grandpa, but at least he sounds genuine. And I just want someone sincere. And, so many of our criticisms are, what could the Democrats do better? What could the media do better? Right? Because, why is it that every American doesn't know that immigrants commit crime at a lower rate than native-born Americans? They aren't a threat. They just aren't a threat. And they're positive for our economy, even growing wages for most Americans. Why is it that everyone doesn't know that? And that's on the media. But when you get right down to it, like, all of our criticisms are about, why did the Democrats not mobilize the same number of people they got out to vote in 2020? Because that's really the deciding factor. Trump got most of his people. Democrats lost, is it 13, 14 million voters?
It's like 9. Like, the votes are being still counted, but Harris got around, about 9 million fewer, I think. 9
million people did not come out for Democrats. And again, our criticism is about, what can Democrats do to win over the people that are win-overable? But when you get right down to it, most people that vote for Trump, it's a flaw with human psychology and the human species, right? The number one predictor of Donald Trump is a debate between racial resentment, which is a nice PC academic way of saying racist, or authoritarianism. These two are very, very well linked. Racism is fueled by about 50% by authoritarian tendencies, and we just haven't outgrown these tendencies. And unfortunately, Donald Trump is able to tap into them. It's unfortunate when we see, like, oh, the price of gas, like, Todd, what you were saying. It's like, God, doesn't it remind you of 1930s Germany? The economy, let's blame the immigrants and this minority of people. If you know anything about the fall of the Roman Republic, it's very similar to Caesar's appeal as well.
Yeah. So what you mentioned there about the media and Democrats and Trump getting his message out, and how, listen, I did an entire video on that very same thing, Keegan, talking about how Trump is genuine. I say this all the time, and liberals get mad when I say it. I said, listen, genuine doesn't mean honest. Donald Trump doesn't have an honest bone in his body. But what I say is that Trump sounds like someone you could actually meet in real life, the way he talks. Like, sure, you wouldn't meet most people who sound like Donald Trump, but he does sound like a person, like a weird one, but a person nonetheless. And you hear him talking, and it's like, okay, well, this guy, he doesn't sound like a machine. He doesn't sound like the,
scripted politician.
He's
not a scripted politician.
Yeah, the political bot 2000 they have up there, just, stiff and pointing their thumb like that and everything. And one thing that Trump does take good use of is the media. That Trump is a born marketer. He is like, his skill is getting his message out there by any means necessary. And the question that Keegan asked there was, why don't people know that immigrants commit crime at a far lower rate than native-born American citizens? Or the fact that, what do you say right here? I can't have it right there, but unemployment. Unemployment is one I always talk about. Donald Trump, every week for the better part of his first term, he went out there and what did he say? Every time unemployment dropped 0.5 point, every time the stock market went to a new all-time high, he'd be out there every week saying, look, black unemployment is the lowest it's ever been. He was right. It was true. Now, of course, if you looked at the stats, you saw that have been dropping every year since 2009. He just happened to be there when it bottomed out. But that's good politics. Black unemployment was lower under Biden. He didn't do that. He wasn't out there every week bragging about this. He wasn't talking about how the stock market was also. I've been saying this for years now. And of course, liberals, they want to play by the rules and stuff. Well, not play, but it's like submit to norms. And they're like, well, Biden doesn't do this because he knows that these metrics are flawed and that they don't actually. Okay, yes, I know it too, but you're a politician. Your job is to sell your message to the people and to win. So this whole, honestly, he didn't go out there and do it because he didn't want in front of the camera. That's why he didn't do it. But, watching that happen and everything, it's political malpractice and there's no one's fault but themselves.
So I think that's.
Go ahead, Todd.
I think that's one of the things that Democrats have to learn is to put aside this traditional way of running for office of, a year before the election, we've tried to figure out who the candidate is going to be. Donald Trump's been running for president for the last 9 years.
Every day for 9 years. Every fucking day.
You know what? Whoever the next person is going to be, the Democrats need to get together and figure out who that person is, like quick, fast, and in a hurry. And for the next 4 years, that person needs to be a thorn in the side of Donald Trump every single day. whether that's Gavin Newsom or somebody else, but they need to be on the news every day. They need to be pushing these political talking points, talking about, hey, look at this mass immigration and how horrible it is and how terrible it's failing, because it's going to fail. It's going to be awful. There are going to be people get killed during it. There's going to be economic fallout from these terrorists from if the immigration thing they actually do that.
Yeah.
There's going to be tons of this stuff that's going to be awful, and they need to spin it in a way every day on the news. This is Donald Trump's policy's fault, because if they don't, Donald Trump's going to go, look what Joe Biden left me.
Yep.
Look at what we're dealing with. These Democrats screwed up the economy, and his people, his base, and the undecideds who don't pay attention to politics till 3 weeks before an election, they will buy it again.
The only thing you took two of my points, Todd. How dare you?
My bad.
We have the best guest here, folks. The best guest.
Tremendous guest. The biggest, most wonderful. Okay. The thing that we also got to teach, like, listen, if you voted for Biden over Bernie, I hope you learned your lesson. Like, this guy was incapable of speaking, and as a result, we lost. This was a big reason. And of course, you have to add on how right-wing he was about Israel. That turned people away from the polls. But his inability to communicate was a primary reason why Democrats lost, for all of the reasons that Todd just said.
All right, I go a step.
I was going to say that is so accurate that this election was lost in 2020 when Joe Biden was nominated. Or at the very least, it was lost whenever the hell Joe Biden decided that he could run again. Because if you look at the economic metrics over the past 4 years, and I've said this multiple times, I'm surprised by how well Joe Biden did. He did some things which I disagreed with, and I was wrong. He did a good job of curbing unemployment, of keeping inflation relatively of keeping inflation relatively low, especially compared to the rest of the world. But he was completely incapable of communicating this to the American people. And by the time that anyone was trying, it was too late. They had this mindset that, oh, Joe Biden won because he was Joe Biden, when really it was a Mickey Mouse ring. He won because of COVID. He won kind of by default because people didn't like the establishment. Trump had become the establishment. They voted against that. They didn't vote for Joe Biden. And what you mentioned earlier, Keegan, about what, you didn't call it this, but median voter theorem. Median voter theorem is like the default position of electoral politics for the past century, where everyone assumes that people are on a bell curve, and the closer you get to the center, the more people you're going to be attracting. But we all know that that's not the case. If you talk to human beings in this country in 2024, no one's just in the middle.
Nobody.
We are now in a bimodal spectrum. You have people who are on the left, you have people who are on the right. And if you are going towards the middle, you are actually at the lowest part of the curve, because that's not where people are anymore. Because people are upset.
I have so much.
But before you jump in, let me see, because I know you're good. So we'll get to that, because I want to talk about that too. It's just that the idea that there's people in the middle, it's always annoyed me, because people love to say this. People don't like to identify as even Democrat and Republican when you talk to folks, let alone left or right of the spectrum. And I get why your average person doesn't want to do that, because chances are they don't know what that right and left even mean. They don't. So they say that I'm on the left and you can pin them on some question, they're going to feel, called out. I got that. But if you talk to the median voter, their views are scattered and incoherent and don't line up logically at all. And it certainly doesn't correlate to any party. So if you're going to say, like, what does the median voter even look like? Someone who has moderate positions on everything, someone who has half left position, half right positions. You're talking about a person that doesn't exist in reality. And Keegan, what I was going to add to what you said is that how you blame this all on Joe Biden. I actually go a step further and blame it all on Obama, because when his term was over in 2016, I say Biden would have beaten Trump in 2016. I'm positive he would have. But no, he went with Clinton. And then in 2020, we could have had Bernie, but he said, no, we're going to go with Biden. And so everything down the line can be blamed a little bit on Obama. And I can't remember who said this, but the fact one of the other reasons the Democrats lost was that two things I thought of. was the voting on the emotion and voting on following someone who inspires you, which is another, I think, the primary reason that Obama won. Obama was a fucking rock star. Now, once again, you can't count on every politician to be Barack Obama. That's unreasonable, but he had a personality. He seemed like someone you wanted to listen to. And it got a whole lot of people, like they said it all the time back then, that Obama was a blank slate. You could project on him what you wanted in a lot of ways, even if because these folks aren't listening to what they're saying. Policy is important to us. And it's a really bitter pill for us to swallow that policy is not the number one issue for a lot of people. But for most people, they vote on vibes. And the thing with Trump is that the Democrats kept trying to separate Donald Trump from the Republican Party, something that infuriated me. How many times did you see Joe Biden up there saying, we have the what is we call them, the extreme MAGA Republicans. These are the folks. No, it's just fucking Republicans. Republicans are the problem, not the extreme MAGA Republicans, not Donald Trump. It's 95% of Republicans voted for Donald Trump in 2024. 95% of them voted for Donald Trump in 2020. That's just how it is. And this is something that it's gonna be hard for if they go low, we go high, folks. One thing Trump also did that Democrats need to buck up and do, and leftists do a pretty good job of this. The people are angry. Direct their anger towards someone or something. That's what Trump does. Trump says your life sucks. It's terrible. You're paying too much for bacon. It's just funny after we whined about the bacon costs. It was just funny thinking of Trump shopping at a grocery store every time we talk about that kind of stuff. But he blamed. That's what Reagan did. Reagan's like, hey, your problem is black people. That's the problem. George W. Bush, your problem, it's Muslims. Donald Trump, your problem, it's Mexican immigrants. Now, that's a nefarious and evil and caustic and misanthropic way to do it. But there is a way to do it. Blame the billionaires. I mean, just easy. Just like no one likes them anyway. And so the people are upset. And you get up on stage and say, actually, everything's all right. The problem's you, actually. You're the problem with the country. It's like, no, I'm sorry. That's not going to really galvanize a lot of people voting. And the Democrats have a big problem with this because I can't remember the Democrat that came out and said it, that the message that like Bernie put forward is something that's kind of toxic to our wealthy voting base. Oh, yeah, that's right. And that's going to lose elections. Yeah, right. Yeah. We're going to say, Keegan?
That's how you end a video right there, TJ. That bit right there.
There you go. Perfect.
There's your exclamation mark to end the video.
So that is our looking back, what went wrong. Now let's look at the wonderful, wonderful present, because guys, Donald Trump isn't even in office yet, and the clown car is on full throttle right now.
My God.
I didn't even notice yesterday that he's having Lisa McMahon be the Secretary of Education. Linda,
right?
Like the former WWE star Linda. Also, just another cabinet pick who has accusations of sexual wrongdoing in the past. Another one also with children. So, just a theme for his cabinet here. But let's talk about the big one with the sexual assault accusations against minors, and that is Matt Gaetz. Now, folks, we've mentioned this before, but we typically pick our topics the night before this show, and then we roll into the next day. Yesterday, we were planning to talk about how Matt Gaetz is going to be the next Attorney General of the United States of America. Today, that ain't the case anymore. Welcome back to Trump's America. Things can change drastically in 24 hours. So, in case anyone has not been following this story, Matt Gaetz was accused of having sexual relations with a 17-year-old high school girl at some house party in Florida. And there was a House Ethics Committee that investigated this. And they have a report that when they were supposed to release it like last Friday, I believe, and when Matt Gaetz resigned from office because he was going to be Attorney General, he was no longer under the jurisdiction of the House Ethics Committee, and the Republicans of the committee said, nope, we're not going to release it because we don't have the authority. And that was that as of yesterday. But today, Matt Gaetz met with the Senate Republicans, and we don't know what happened there, but I think they read the report, and I think they said, no way, Jose. I don't know. There's actually a lot of interesting internal Republican politics here, but I'll throw to Superman Todd first. What has your reaction? I mean, you can cover the whole spectrum from when you learned Matt Gaetz was the guy to when you learned that he wasn't the guy anymore.
Well, first of all, living in a red state and being the liberal guy that people know that everybody directs their anger toward. I've listened to these people talk about, the left is a bunch of pedos, we're the pedophiles, we're the ones, and to watch them cheer this pick, like, oh, this is great. Like, this is not some weird claim. This is where the former Speaker of the House got up on national television. Was it at the RNC and he says, yeah, the reason this guy doesn't like me is because he was having sex with little girls and I started investigating it. But I don't think that has anything to do with why they're not going to confirm him and why he's stepped down. I don't think that investigation has anything to do with it. It just has to do with he pissed them off. If he'd have said, yes, Mr. McCarthy, absolutely, and played the game and not turn the House into chaos and got McCarthy taken out, I think they would confirm him. I think this has nothing to do with him being a pedophile, sexual abuser, a frequent purchaser of prostitutes who may be barely of age. This has to do with he bucked the Republicans and they don't like him. It doesn't have anything to do. It has nothing to do with him being a rapist.
You're right. Oh my God, you're so right. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Hold on, let me absorb that. Somebody else.
Todd. All right, so I had so when I texted John, John said the same thing. He says, what was in that report? I had the same thought, though. And the reason I thought it was I didn't think about McCarthy and everything. But the reason I thought the report didn't matter was when has it ever mattered? When has being a sexual predator ever stopped the Republicans from just completely circling the wagons and covering somebody? If they didn't do it for Donald Trump, if they didn't do it for what's his name, Brett Kavanaugh, I mean, who? I don't know. What was the guy in Alabama? I can't remember his name. The senator. Roy Moore. Yes, the Republicans have never backed down from support. They haven't met a rapist they didn't like. And but Matt Gaetz, I will say one thing. Matt Gaetz was appointed Attorney General. His nomination period was short. But I do have to commend Matt Gaetz for taking down sexual predator Matt Gaetz. I mean, for his short term as being suggested for Attorney General, gotta say, pretty good work right there. And one of the
That 1 for 1, TJ. He
hit
that single, then he retired 1,000 batting average.
Yeah, it's kind of like say what you want about Hitler, but he did kill Hitler. Kind of one of those things. And I'm glad, honestly. I don't know what the plan is for Matt Gaetz, though, because Matt Gaetz, a lot of people are saying that this is some 4D chess move to get rid of the ethics committee thing. I don't think it would have fucking mattered. Todd, you're right. The Republicans hate him because he is a chaos agent. They can't trust him. They don't like him. I think Trump could have possibly whipped them together, but who knows? And so I think it was a personal vendetta. And what I did did you guys see what Marjorie Taylor Greene, this is the last time we're going to talk about this story since Matt Gaetz is stepping down like the coward that he is. But I liked what Marjorie Taylor Greene said, because she's Matt Gaetz' buddy. Those two are thick as thieves, where she said, for my Republican colleagues in the House and Senate, if we are going to release ethics reports and rip apart our town that Trump has appointed, then put all of it out there for the American people to see. Yes, all the ethics reports and claims, including the one I filed. All your sexual harassment and assault claims that were secretly settled, paying off victims with taxpayer money, the entire Jeffrey Epstein files, tapes, recordings, witness interviews, but not just those. There's more. Epstein wasn't and isn't the only asset. If we're going to dance, let's dance into the sunlight. I'll make sure that we do. Do it, Green. What are you fucking waiting for? You have evidence that people or allegations that a lot of your colleagues are sexual predators, and you're holding it ransom instead of giving it to the American people. You have access to the Epstein files. You're not putting it out there. You're enabling sexual assault out in public. And it's these folks have no fucking morals. They have no standards whatsoever. It's disgusting.
I can't help but think of two political psychology angles. The first one is projection. I mean, the hypocrisy is so obvious. I mean, these are the people, the Republican Party on the state level is trying to lower the age of consent. The overwhelming majority of marriages between an adult and a teenager happen in red states, in red counties, between conservatives. Child beauty pageants are overwhelmingly conservative. The hypocrisy is unbelievable. Donald Trump was Jeffrey Epstein's friend, right? And you could go on and on and on. The projection is just, it's so freaking annoying. But, what's interesting to me is the question, TJ, you brought up, which is, Why don't conservatives hold their own people accountable? And we see this with never holding pastors and priests accountable for creeping on their parishioners, especially kids. Another example of conservatives being creepy towards kids. We see this with their utter surprise that anyone on the left would cut them out of their personal life for their political views. I'm sure you've seen a lot of this, like, oh my God, how could these liberals cut me out of their life? And so for me, the question is like, what's going on here psychologically? And I think it's ultimately because conservatives don't view morality in terms of how we treat each other, right? We can't make the mistake that they make of projecting the way we see morality onto them. It's about power. It's about authority. Just like what Todd was saying. Why do they not like Matt Gaetz? Because he defied authority. All you have to, and if you have that authority, there really isn't such a thing in the conservative mind as abuse of power, because might makes right. Their morality is more based in, if you're on my team, you're a good person. If you aren't, you're a bad person, you're the enemy. And it's very simple-minded. It's easy for the mentally lazy or the stupid people to understand. Whereas people on the left view things more in terms of how they affect other people, you know?
Yeah, this is something that you'll see with religious thinking a lot. That if you ever talk to a religious...
I was about to go right there. You jumped in and got there before I did.
Yeah, if you talk to religious people, a checkmate they like to do is they'll talk about, well, you know, if you're just saying that morality is something we figure out as people and try to like weigh the good versus the bad in our point of view, then morality is not objective. And, you know, that makes morality pretty difficult. Yeah, it does. I'm sorry. True. It does, because what they're describing is not morality. It's exactly what Keegan said. It's obedience to authority. It requires no thought. It requires no nuance. It requires no evaluation. It requires no change. And it requires no fucking work. It's lazy. It's lazy as hell. And they act like they're better than you when they do this. And I'm so glad, Keegan, you brought up the child marriage thing, because conservative states are like rampant with these creepy child beauty pageant things, like words that should never be said in the same sentence, and their stubborn obstinance to raising the age of marriage. And Missouri, the state I grew up in, I pulled up a clip just now a few years ago where Missouri was trying to pass a bill that said, I think the bill said that you need to be 18 to get married. You know, a pretty standard normal bill to pass. Of course, there were Republicans who were against it, because in that state, you could get married at 16, I think, but you could get married as young as 12 with parental consent. And the Democrat here, he's trying to argue that this is a bad idea, and he's asking this Republican in Missouri. Well, actually, let's play it here. Let's see what he has to say.
I've heard you talk about parents' rights to raise their kids how they want. In fact, I just double checked. You voted no on making it illegal for kids to be married to adults at the age of 12 if their parents consented to it. You said actually that should be the law because it's the parents' right and the kids' right to decide what's best for them to be raped by an adult. Okay?
Do you know any kids who have been
with
married
marriage
at age 12?
That was the law. You voted not to change it.
Do you know any kids who have been married at age 12?
I don't need to.
I do. And guess what? They're still married.
Gentlemen.
Just
wow,
like
that got so much creepier than I thought it was going to go.
It did, right? Yeah, because he didn't expect that either. The guy he was talking to, yeah, it was Mike Moon is the guy. If you guys want to look this guy up, he was one of, I think, 2 or 3 people who voted against the bill to say, no, 12-year-olds shouldn't get to marry adults, because he said that, well, you know, in some religious communities, they do have 12-year-olds marry adults and they are living long, happy lives. And I don't see why we should step in, why big government should step in and ruin that. Like, these are the folks that we're dealing with here.
Or are you quoting a Republican?
I know, right? Yeah. Is there any fucking difference at all?
Can I give you a psychology thing? By the way, may I ask, somebody already dropped an F-bomb, so I imagine we're kind of rated R here.
You're good. You're good.
Oh, yeah, you're good.
So I want to talk about what's up with this. Like, why do conservatives creep on teenagers? And I think the answer ultimately comes down to, you know, a lot of what we do is we fetishize things we see in our culture and in our society, right? So on average, you know, women are on average more attracted to a more dominant man because that's what we see in society, and it's a fetishization of what we see, right? And conservatives think in a much more hierarchical way. So what they're doing is they're fetishizing hierarchy. And this is why they think it's okay to have that kind of power to creep on teenage girls.
Yeah, it's really because especially with this topic, it's interesting to see the authority angle at play, because every time you talk about this, like with a conservative, even if it's like a generally well-meaning conservative person who's reasonably like, yeah, no, Matt Gaetz, like, yeah, you shouldn't be having sex with a 17-year-old, they'll still like be like, what was the age of consent? And it's like, why do you give a flying fuck what the law says is right or wrong? Because I don't know about you, but I am 27, or actually shit, I'm 28 years old now. And if I saw an 18-year-old, I wouldn't be like, I wonder if she's above the age of consent or not. I'd be like, this is a child who I clearly shouldn't be having sexual relations with. At no point since I was maybe like out of college have I ever looked at an 18-year-old and been like, even maybe. Because it's
But your
insane.
goal,
When I was a senior in college,
goal,
being a freshman, it felt icky, you know? And it's just like, I don't understand how anyone, and genuinely anyone, can look at a grown-ass man, a 40-year-old man having sex with a 17-year-old and even questioning, well, what was the age of consent? Go fuck yourself. That's
because
it doesn't matter what the age of
not
consent
trying
was.
to uphold the patriarchy.
Your
goal is not to your goal is not to uphold the patriarchy. Like, these people, they don't want people getting divorced, right? They don't want women to be able to choose their lives. What's the easiest way to get a woman locked into a marriage that she cannot get out of? Marry her as a child and make it so that she cannot escape. Make it so she has no income, no way, nothing to fall back on. You know, these people, they start, the easiest way to have a lifelong marriage is to start perping on a teenage girl and use the law to do it and keep her under your thumb for the rest of her life. Like, this is their goal. It is the perfect way to continue the patriarchy as the way they want it to be, where women are subservient to men. So if you're it goes way back. Like, if you're from the backwoods here in Kentucky, you have a mamaw who got married at 15 or 16 years old to your papaw who was 35. And this is what conservatives point to, right? When they're like, the divorce rate is so much higher. Back in grandma and grandpa's day, only 10% of women left because women couldn't go anywhere because she got married when she was 14 and she has no skills and she has no income, way to provide for herself. Like, the goal is different than what you're explaining, John. You're looking at it as a moral, like a really moral, not Christian moral, as a moral, ethical human. And they're looking at it from a power dynamic and a upholding traditional life.
It's almost like they haven't grown since medieval times.
Yeah, and they're proud. Some of them will tell you that to your face. Like, Michael Knowles said something similar to this. Speaking of which, Keegan, you were talking about how lefty media isn't funded like right-wing media. And if I wrote down, what are those names? I wrote down a bunch of names that came to mind when we started talking about this. But I started writing down just random conservative pundits that I can name a dozen people. Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, like guys with like no talent at all, getting tons of money to spout this stuff out there. But Michael Knowles is another one of those guys. And he said something like, he doesn't want to take America back to 1957. He wants to take America back to 1457. Like, he honestly said that. Like, he has this Catholic fascist ideology thing going on. And with Matt Gaetz, the only thing I'm worried about now with Matt Gaetz is that Trump's going to appoint someone even worse now. I honestly, like, there's no bottom here. I mean, we could have Roger Stone as the Attorney General of the United States next year, and nothing.
Don't say that out loud. It'll actually happen. Don't say that.
Just
please.
like I don't know. I
feel that way
TJ,
about
it's
all
already
of it.
It's been decided.
It's
it's been decided who the next nominee is. We have no idea if the nominee will make it into 2025, but currently the nominee is someone by the name of Pam Bandy. No idea about her.
I know that is,
but Mark commented this, and I looked it up, and it's correct. Pam Bondi, sorry, and I think she's the AG of Florida. And
that's a good sign.
I know, right?
Yeah, I
two
know,
Florida
right?
people in a row. Yeah,
But this does bring up a good point, and Mark's been saying this a couple times. I've heard a conservative say this all the time, like, "Oh, look, Trump nominated a woman. Are you going to talk about that? Clearly, he isn't sexist, bro." Before this, he nominated someone accused of raping a 17-year-old girl. Just because you nominate a woman doesn't suddenly like give you like that. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like
he raped a woman too.
Mm.
He's an actual rapist.
Yeah, like it bothers me when people are like, and you know what, fucking like liberals will do it too. You know, like I've seen liberals do the same thing. But the like it's just like no, that's not it. Like that's identity. That's the bad side of identity.
It is.
Like,
Turns
and I don't
out-
understand why like the average normie conservative puts up with that shit.
Because they're dishonest. That's the
Yes,
real answer.
yes.
But like it's because, hey, as it turns out, women can be garbage people too.
What?
Oh my god, women can be anti-feminist. Women can benefit from the patriarchy.
See, that's
and want
why-
to uphold it. Oh my god, Black Nazi Mark Robinson. Wow.
Go ahead, Todd. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, so that's why I love the whenever people say, you know, the United States is just not ready for a woman president. Like if it's a woman who goes against the majority of other women, that they will be like Nikki Haley would have won this election.
Margaret Thatcher.
Like if it's a woman who stands against the 92% of black women who voted Democrat, the country is ready for those women.
Oh,
okay.
God.
They're not ready for women who stand up for women.
Yes.
So there's with that. I'm so glad. So this is what I've been harping on ever since Harris's loss is that predictably enough, I saw so many people say, well, we should have known better. The nation's too racist and it's too sexist. Look, maybe it is. But let's grant that maybe that's the case. I'm not buying it. No.
Sexist and racist were going to vote for Trump no matter what.
But they would be saying like the people who stayed home, the 9 million people who showed up for Biden and didn't show up for Harris. They're the racist and sexist. But here's the thing. It doesn't really matter if you're trying to evaluate your campaign unless your solution is to never nominate a woman again. Because like if you're saying that, okay, at least you're standing by what you think is the case here. But most would just allude to it. And it's like, okay, do you want to complain or do you want to win? Because that lack of introspection and just saying, well, the voters are just bad gets you fucking nowhere. And Todd, I'm so glad you mentioned that thing where about how, you know, women can they'll vote. They would definitely vote for Nikki Haley. I said that Trump could have picked maybe, you know, Ben Carson to be his vice president. Like, oh, he wouldn't pick a black guy. They wouldn't give a fuck. First of all, they're not voting for Ben Carson. They're voting for Donald Trump. They don't care either way. And yeah, this has bothered me when lefties do it or liberals do it. I remember when Donna Brazile on CNN, that she got busted for giving Hillary Clinton questions before a debate. And someone was asking her about it. And her response was, oh, is this what you do in the news? You guys try to pester black women? I almost screamed. I almost screamed at the kids. Like, no, you got caught doing something wrong. Stop hiding behind it. You know who's a master at this? Fuck. She's actually in a later segment. I got to wait. No, I don't. Fuck it. Nancy Mace. Okay. Nancy Mace is a master at this. I've seen so many times when they would ask her about why she's supporting Donald Trump. When Donald Trump was, you know, found, I know it's not technically found guilty. It's found live, whatever, guilty of raping someone. And they're like, well, why would you support a rapist as a woman? She always had the same answer. She would say, well, listen, I am a survivor. I'm a victim of rape. And I think that it is horrible that you are judging a woman for her decisions for just immediately pandering to, oh, women are, you know, they always make the right decisions. Like, no, women can be terrible too. And here's an example of her. She's being asked in this news report about why she's, spamming this bathroom nonsense we'll get to pretty soon. But here's her predictable pivot.
I am giving you the chance to address the Boeing layoffs here. Have you posted anything about that? Have you made any comments about that publicly? What are you going to do for your constituents about that? I looked on your social media. I did not see anything regarding the Boeing layoffs, and I'm sure that is going to impact people in the Palmetto State in South Carolina.
You are incredulous and so insulting to women. Number one, it was just announced yesterday. Comment on any company's position or firing their employees, I'm going to get all the facts and understand what's really going on, so that I don't shoot from the hip prematurely. It's just like when the monkeys were released 2 weeks ago by Alphagenesis Lab, again in my district. I had a meeting with the CEO before I commented publicly. It's really, I think, important to be deliberative when it comes to people who are going to lose their jobs. It's important to get the facts before commenting on something prematurely. I think my voters and my constituents deserve that. I will tell you, no one will work harder than I will for South Carolina. I have brought tens of millions of dollars in resources to my district because people need them, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's women's issues, whether it's cybersecurity. I sit on the Oversight Committee, work on a lot of cybersecurity issues. I have worked diligently 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and nothing some left-wing journalist like you can say will stop me from working hard for the people of South.
Actually, that wasn't the clip I was looking for. As you kept on talking, but the clip that I was thinking, she was talking the same interview, but she kept saying, well, women can talk and chew gum at the same time. You're out here saying women can't actually focus on the job, just pivoting it to, shitting on women all the time. But I do hate when folks do that, Todd. I'm right there with you.
Well,
I just wonder how many of those. I just wonder how many of those tens of millions of dollars she's brought to her district or money that came despite her voting against that money.
Yes. Yeah. Or went just into the pockets of a CEO.
Yeah, she wants to talk to. Notice how she said she wants to talk to the CEO of the company after the layoffs, not the people who were laid off. Just very, very specifically want to talk to the CEO. I'm sure he's going to give it to you straight.
John, fortunately, that very leftist journalist, I'm sure we can count on her to stand up for these kind of class issues. I'm sure that she really got in there, That leftist media, man, those leftists in mainstream media. Remember how all of them supported leftist Bernie Sanders? You remember that?
They loved him, folks. They loved him. They loved him. So Matt Gaetz is down, but we still have a few other people out there who are nominated. Todd, I don't know if this would affect you personally, I think, but Pete Hegseth. Did you hear about this? Did you hear about our boy Pete is going to be nominated for, or is nominated for Secretary of Defense? Can't think of a more deserving guy.
The thing is, I am like on level playing field as far as the qualifications go. Like I could be Secretary of Defense. Like
buddy, he has like 8 years in the Guard or something. Like you're way more qualified than Pete Hegseth.
Yeah. So I guess I saw a few reports today where it's kind of heating up with Trump about him because I think this sexual assault allegation against him. I guess the police report. There's actually a police report out there where the victim filed a police report and he paid money to keep it quiet or whatever. But
his own lawyer confirmed that he paid off money to keep it quiet.
So I think there's trouble in the water with that. But I don't think it has anything to do with him being possibly a rapist, even though he's about to take over Secretary of Defense of unarmed forces that has a sexual assault problem and a culture that needs to be addressed. But I think if he doesn't make it through again, it's going to be because he's ticked Trump off because he was dishonest or he didn't disclose something. That's what's going to sink him, not the fact that he's a racist. If he came forward, or not rapist, rapist. If he came forward and said, if he said, hey, yeah, I may have raped a girl back in the day, and not blindsided Trump. Okay, cool. So have I. No big deal.
That's probably how he got the nod. That's probably how he got the nomination. It's like, oh, really?
Yeah. So, but then again, just like with Gaetz, okay, if this guy doesn't get confirmed, then who's next? Are we going to have Michael Flynn is going to be like the Secretary of Defense?
Michael Flynn.
And you got to take the oath to QAnon to be in the military now?
Oh, God. That's true. You know what? Michael Flynn would have actually been a decision that he could have defended. He's like, Michael Flynn was a general. You tell me a general is not qualified? Yeah, he could have actually defended that one, but Pete Hegseth, yikes. What do you think, John?
So Pete Hegseth it again continues the tradition of nominating people who have sexual assault histories in their past. But also, I mean, here's the thing with all the nominations, guys. I'm starting to get a little numb to it because I don't know how many of these guys are going to make it. Like this is just a clown show. And I mentioned in the beginning of the show, I don't know if it was the beginning of the show or before we started going live, that he nominated Lena, whatever her name is, McMahon,
Linda McMahon.
From the WWE.
Yeah.
And honestly, what this is starting to remind me of is like a WWE storyline where you're just going for the shock value. Like you're putting in the people that you trust. You're going for shock value, and you're just staying in the news. And it's classic Trump behavior. But you do have to wonder, this is already at like peak Trump from the previous term, right? Like we're already at like peak saturation of Donald Trump. How long before he breaks kayfabe? Like how long before the people who voted for him, who are low information voters, start going, wait a second. Like, this doesn't make sense. Every single like person who ever goddamn said DEI hire, and I know that we've already talked about on the show multiple times how DEI hire is just another term for the N-word. But like, it's bad. This is the Dr. Oz, freaking WWE person. Like it's just random people who are totally unqualified. Fox News host. Like it doesn't make any sense. And the fact that the same people who were bitching and moaning about DEI hires are like, yeah, no, this makes sense, guys. Like eventually the dam's got to break. Like when things go bad, he's gonna run out of scapegoats because they're all idiots.
What do you think, Keegan?
Everything's already been said.
Everything's been said. I like that this is the people who, that's a great point, John. People who have been complaining about DEI for as long as we can remember. Well, I mean, it was DEI the last few years. That Trump's entire cabinet is essentially just DEI for people with fridge temperature IQs, just like the lowest people possible that you could just scrape up from the dregs of society. It's like, yeah, let's put the WWE lady in charge of the Department of Education. And it goes to something that I don't know, John. I don't know if the public is going to revolt over this. I really don't, because the Republicans know
they won't.
I don't think they will.
Because
they won't over this. But like, if he does the crazy, like if he puts the tariffs in, if he
tariffs,
like, does,
yeah, that would be a problem.
Like door-to-door mass deportations with the military, like he says he's going to do.
I disagree with that.
And there's economic hardship. If people experience the
did we lose John? Well, I think he was saying that if they experience the economic hardship that will definitely come to the nation if we deport 20 million people or 10 million or 5 million, whatever he's planning on doing, it's really going to come back to haunt us. But for his picks for the cabinet, the Republican goal, as long as I've been alive, the Republican goal has been, like, what did Ronald Reagan say? That the 9 worst words English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help, to make that true. That they want government broken as much as they can. So they don't care if the head of the Department of Education has nothing to do with education. They don't care if the head of the Department of Defense knows almost nothing about defense. They don't care if it all falls apart because they actually want it to break. Sorry, John, you cut out there for a second. What were you saying? You were talking about how deportations would hurt the economy and the people would revolt over
my Verizon. Yeah, no, like Trump had a Goldilocks economy, right? Like during his first presidency. But the only time there was a problem is when COVID happened. And like, fortunately for him, it was like, oh, COVID. That's what caused the issues, not Donald Trump. That is to a certain extent true, like Donald Trump.
I mean, let's not forget that, like, for all the unemployment numbers, for all the, he's riding on Obama's coattails, most of the jobs, a disproportionate number of the jobs under the Trump administration that were created were underemployment kinds of jobs. They were part-time jobs. They were gig economy jobs that are not enough to pay for an apartment. So let's keep that in mind,
Yeah, and it's not like there wasn't that hardship until the very end where there was an obvious scapegoat. But he, hopefully, knock on wood, there isn't going to be a scapegoat this time. And if he does the things that he wants to do, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt a lot of people. And a lot of people are going to be hurt, and they're going to be looking for someone to blame. And he's not going to have COVID there this time. And all they're going to see is they're going to look up about how he put all of these idiots in charge of everything, and they're going to be mad about it. And it's one of those things where even an idiot, as soon as they kind of learn that he put fucking Linda McMahon in charge of education, they'll be like, that doesn't seem like a smart thing to do.
It's Bush second term 2.0. TJ, I want to add to what you're saying, because there's the old saying of the Republicans break government, they break the economy, and then Democrats have to come in and fix it. And then the Republicans get back in power because Democrats didn't have enough time and didn't go bold enough to actually fully fix it.
Mhm.
The Republicans, a lot of people think, oh, the Republicans want to bring us back to the 50s because, of the social issues regarding like women and race and all that. I've been saying for years now, the Republicans don't want to bring us back then. They want to bring us to the 1920s. They want to bring us to a time before Social Security, before the New Deal, before the Great Society, before Medicare, before Medicaid, before union protections, before the minimum wage, before child labor laws, which the Republicans in certain states are starting to break down.
Yep, they are. Like Iowa, I think last year had this whole rolling back child labor law that let people who are kids who are 14 years old, like 8th graders, they were allowed to work 6 nights a week. They were allowed to work in construction and demolition jobs during night on school nights. I mean, they're rolling the entire thing back. And yes, what you just said there, Keegan, people do like to say the Republicans want to take us back to the 1950s and everything. And what I always talk about is I kind of want to go back to the 50s too. And if you want to give us the 50s era economic or, tax policy, all in. I'm all in. Like that's what made the American economy explode in the post-war period. But that's not what Republicans want. They want to go back socially to the 1940s and 50s, when women, like Todd was saying, were trapped in marriages and certain people knew their place and didn't complain about the way society was. And excellent point about the 1920s. Did you guys notice how often Trump talked about the Gilded Age over these last couple of months? He wouldn't shut up about it. He was at this barbershop saying that America was at its best during the 1890s when we had plenty of tariffs and no income tax. We had a president, William McKinley, and I have to say,
who McKinley was.
Shocked,
That's impressive.
shocked. I was shocked he knew who William McKinley was. I thought for sure he'd fuck it up, but he nailed it. He said, which means he really loves the Gilded Age, folks. And he was like, the Gilded Age with William McKinley, we had to bring people together and get a blue ribbon commission to decide how we were going to spend the money. And it wasn't on poor people. It was just on, the rich people and robber barons and all that. Also, Keegan, you mentioned this with the underemployment. Yes. This is something that people would get mad at me when I said Biden should brag about unemployment. Because here's the thing with unemployment numbers. Unemployment and stock market numbers, they are in a way, no, it's not in a way. They are duplicitous or untrustworthy markers for how well the economy is doing in a way. Because if the stock market is high and unemployment is low, that does not mean your life is good. It doesn't. You being employed may not mean you can afford your rent. Like you might be living with roommates, maybe living with your folks. The stock market being high doesn't affect you much at all, honestly. But if the stock market crashes and unemployment skyrockets, then your life sucks. So it's not really honest to say that, oh, the unemployment's really great, but it is great marketing. It works for people. So yeah, I wrote down, blame Trump. John, you mentioned this, that the people will blame Trump if all his cabinet picks are catastrophic. Maybe, I don't know, because like his core base won't blame him. He'll do the same thing he did last time.
But
saying
his core base ain't actually that big, TJ. That's like
yeah,
his core base is not as big as we think it is. It's really 30% of the Republican Party is his base. That's
but
it.
the thing is that if they blame Trump or not, he's not. He can't run again. I mean, it's just like he can have his cronies. Are they going to blame Republicans? I don't think so. Like, I just don't. It's like, go ahead, Keegan.
Yeah, so first off, I mean, Trump's approval rating within the Republican Party is outrageously high.
Yeah, it's massive.
Like 80-90%, like maybe over 90% now that we're honeymooning with his election victory. The point you really should be talking about is the low information voters that decided within the last month. That's like maybe a plurality of society. Like there are 40% of the country is independent. So that's more of what matters. It's the 80 to 90% of the 1/3 of the country that identifies as Republican is his base. But I did want to ask, you think Trump knows how William McKinley's presidency ended?
Oh my God, William McKinley's assassination is one of my favorite things.
Spoiled it.
Sorry, go for it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I spoiled this thing that happened decades ago.
It's been 130 years ago. That TJ, spoiler alert. Yeah. No, but still, most Americans couldn't tell you that, so I don't blame you for thinking that. But go ahead, Keegan. Do you want to talk about McKinley's assassination?
Oh no! I just wanted
Oh
it to
no.
be veiled. I just
Yeah,
wanted
I
it
was
to
like,
be a
oh, I
little like,
see.
oh,
Yeah,
if you know,
wink
you
and a
know.
nod, shit, and everything. William McKinley was shot by the guy's name was I think Nicholas Cholgosh. I think his name was. I think it was
Great
Cholgosh. It
name.
was,
He's an
yeah.
anarchist, right?
Yes, he was an anarchist, and he had this wild theory that the United States government and the United States economy was in such bad shape because politicians had all been bought and paid for by the rich and the powerful, and that they were screwing. I know they were screwing over the working class. Richard Cholgosh was, whatever his first name was, he was a steel mill worker. He was the son of Polish immigrants, and he had been laid off for his job. He was trying to find work. He couldn't find it, and people who could find work were working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and the rich were getting richer, the poor were getting poorer. And he saw William McKinley as the head of the snake, so he shot him. And I bring this up because there's a reason you're not taught about Cholgosh in school. They'll teach about Lincoln assassination, Kennedy assassination. No one you know will know that about Cholgosh because the dude was right about pretty much everything. This is not an endorsement to shoot any politicians, by the way. I'm just telling you what happened.
It didn't work.
It did not work. Yeah, it didn't work, turns out.
The anarchist assassination, like the global anarchist assassination movement, there's only one time it actually worked out, and it is actually the William McKinley one, but that's because Theodore Roosevelt happened to be very progressive, happened to be one of the 5 most progressive presidents in American history. But the Garfield assassination, which was done by a crazy person who kind of identified as an anarchist, that really didn't work because Garfield was more progressive than Chester A. Arthur. The King of Italy, that didn't work out. But they don't teach us about how it's always been the same. So many people, one of the things that's real frustrating about liberals is that they act like all shocked. Like, we've always been a Trump country. Do you know anything about the 19th century? We've always been a stupid, mentally lazy, overly religious, racist, sexist society. Of course, yeah, duh. We've always been a Trump country. Look up the Know Nothing Party.
There was a party called the Know Nothing Party. Yes.
They were literally called the Know Nothings, and boy, was that representative of them.
Yeah.
On to the next story.
Real quick. Oh, go ahead, John.
No, go ahead, because I was about to segue to the next story. So
I just wanted to play this. I had a clip here of Pete Hegseth that I wanted to pull up because this is the guy that Trump nominated for Secretary of Defense, and he was on Fox News. He's a Fox News reporter, for those who don't know. He almost killed a guy with an axe, and I wanted to play that video real quick.
Who's going to win this battle with the lumberjack? That's going to come out next. I'm putting my money on Clayton.
Jesus.
Did that come through? Was it green?
Dude, look at those other drummers just going. Oh my God, look at those other drummers.
Yeah. So that's the guy that Donald Trump wants to head our soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and what are they called? Guardians? I don't know. But
dude, he sucks at axe throwing. Oh my God. Come on, dude.
Worst axe
really
thrower.
Good.
Fake man.
He was really good. He was
real men know how to throw axes better than that. Fake man.
What were you saying, John?
I would say no. He's actually really good. He was just doing the not my tempo thing.
Oh,
that was good, John. That was good.
All right,
that was good.
So we alluded to segueing into the next topic, and actually, Red Scare Claire had a comment that I thought would perfectly segue us, because she said the Republicans they want pre-New Deal, they want Dred Scott type of court decisions too, and well, Red Scare Claire, that's not hyperbole. That's literally what Donald Trump is gunning for here. It's been in the news this week that Donald Trump is aiming to get rid of birthright citizenship, right? Birthright citizenship, for those who do not know, is when someone is born on U.S. soil, they are a citizen of the United States. This is very clearly laid out in the 14th Amendment. But here's the thing. Before the 14th Amendment, we had the Dred Scott ruling. And the Dred Scott ruling was about Dred Scott was the slave, right?
He was the slave, yeah.
He was the slave, and I believe he went to Wyoming, which was a free state. And he argued before the court that when he...
I studied Constitution.
Yeah, go ahead, Keegan. You seem...
So Dred Scott
go ahead.
Was a slave, and he was brought up to, I believe it was Wisconsin. He was brought up from Missouri to Wisconsin, and he was treated not dissimilarly from a free man. And when his owner died, the idea was that Dred Scott's would be inherited by Stanford successors. 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 Stanford su but he lived in a free state. So the Dred Scott case was A, does a black person have standing within our courts? B, is he free because he's in a free state? So on.
And the decision said that he was property, if I remember correctly. Isn't that what the Dred Scott said? That he,
the decision basically said that, like, I believe it was the Missouri Compromise got struck down, that slave owners were free to take their slaves wherever they wanted, and they would still be slaves, and that black people are not really people, so they can't really have standing within court. So the idea that he could even bring a case to a court was thrown out. And it was a 7-2 decision. Our wonderful Supreme Court doing a great job.
They never let us
major
down.
catalysts of the Civil War.
No. John, before you hop back in, I want to mention a little trivia there with the taking slaves across state lines or whatever. George Washington, when he worked in Philadelphia, he would have a rotation where he would keep his slaves with him for like 29 days and then send them back and then get a new rotation, because at the time there was a limit. There was a time limit that if you had slaves in that free city for a certain period of time, they would be free. And so he would keep them there just before it expired and then send them out. So that's the kind of great nation we grew up in here, folks. That's pretty good. Yeah.
And so how...
damn it. Did we lose John?
Birthright citizenship is that that was the ruling that kind of... Oh, did we lose me? Can you guys
hear
for
me? A second there. We got you now.
All right. Okay, cool. So I was going to say the way this ties back into birthright citizenship is that basically ignited the Civil War. After the Civil War, we have the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment very specifically and very clearly explains that anyone born in the United States of America, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside, which, essentially grants everyone ever born here, which is, at that point, pretty much all of the slaves,
all
citizenship.
Yeah. Can I just say, this is actually the most revolutionary.
Yeah.
This is actually the most revolutionary amendment in our Constitution. It's more revolutionary than the freedom of speech protections. The idea that everyone is equal under the law was not a concept in human history until that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
conservatives have always hated it.
They hate it.
Yeah. And Trump's directly going after it. So he doesn't actually have the power to end birthright citizenship as the president of the United States. That basically has to be a constitutional amendment at this point, but he can weaken it through the courts. And the New York Times reported on Monday that as part of the mass deportation plan, Trump's policy team plans to stop issuing citizenship affirming documents like passports and social security cards to infants born on domestic soil to undocumented migrant parents. And that is something that is within his power to do, and it would force a court case up to the Supreme Court to basically strike down the 14th Amendment, or at least that part of the 14th Amendment. And it could be one of the most consequential things to happen during Trump's presidency, because as Keegan alluded to, that the 14th Amendment is one of our bedrock, we definitely need this one amendments. And it is, in my opinion, immigration is one of my, and not one of them, but probably like my cornerstone issue that I get most personally, entangled in. And it is shocking to me that anyone with a conscience would want to end birthright citizenship, because it's like, how do you pick two babies who were born right next to each other and say this one doesn't deserve equal rights with this one because this one parents are bad? Like, it just breaks my brain that people will stand on a high horse and say they truly believe that one baby deserves different rights than another baby because of who their parents are. It so fundamentally goes against the core of what I view as being an American is. It is disgusting and shocking to me that this is even an issue right now. But Todd, I'm seeing some interesting reactions on your face. What are your thoughts here?
First off, I mean, 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said, hey, it's fine. The courts are going to work it out. It will be, they'll strike anything down and say, this is unconstitutional. The 14th Amendment is clear. You can't do this. But that confidence is gone. Like the confidence of the religious zealots that we have on the Supreme Court right now, who are just nothing but hack jobs put in there specifically to destroy this country. It's a really scary time. It's hard to deprogram from that too. Like talking about these appointments and things, and you know, I saw a story about how Bill Clinton, I forget which appointments he tried to make, and they're like, they couldn't get confirmed because they had hired illegal immigrant nannies, 2 of his appointments, and they couldn't do it. Well, now we're just in this totally different alternate reality where our governmental systems, and I've seen so many scholars talk through these issues about how a lot of our government and the way that it functions and the way that the checks and balances happen are based upon people's willingness to comply with what the various branches of governments do. And when you get a person in office who's like, I don't care what you say, there are very few things in place that are put in place to prevent that person from doing something. There are very few enforcement arms to prevent those things from happening, because no one ever thought that this would even be a possibility, that there would be people in power who would just go, I don't care what the Supreme Court says. And I think we're probably, this issue to me and a lot of these issues, I'm like, I think we're coming up to possibly some constitutional crisis in the next few years.
I think you're right, Todd.
Say what, Keegan?
I think Todd is right. In literally every way.
Yeah. We have a good. Oh, go ahead.
So listen, I'd be curious as to why John puts immigration as a top issue, but the fact that the media did not pound away that every single attempt in human history to do mass deportations has resulted in concentration camps and a whole lot of suffering and death. The fact that the media did not constantly pound away at that shows you the failure to actually be the fourth estate, to actually be a check on power. It's really unacceptable, man. Like, people have to be told this stuff. People are so busy. People are so disaffected by how politics affects them that are they going to research it? No, people got to take care of their kids and go to their job, and they blah blah blah. It's just, oh boy, it's so frustrating that media does not. As frustrated as I am by the media not talking about how immigrants commit crime at a lower rate than native-born Americans, the not talking about mass deportations always resulting in concentration camps is just unconscionable to me.
Yeah, I was kind of, so John, I don't know if immigration is his top issue, but it's one of his favorite issues. He likes to talk about it. He studied a lot and talks about it. That's probably what he meant by that. I just know from experience that he talks about that a lot. But yeah, I was kind of surprised. I was shocked to find out during this last presidential cycle, the support for mass deportation amongst the populace way higher than I would have guessed. It was a majority. It was like a majority of people were perfectly fine with it. Stunned me. But then again, I'm thinking like me. I'm not thinking like, people who aren't told stuff like that, who aren't even aware of the second, third, and fourth order effects of something like that. But the morality of it, I figured would get people. That's what surprised me more than anything. It was something like 54% of people were perfectly cool with it. And with the topic of birthright citizenship,
there's no counter argument.
What?
There's no counter argument. This is one of the flaws with the Democratic Party, is that they see, oh God, well, a majority of Americans are right-wing when it comes to immigration. Therefore, we have to be right-wing too. It's like, no, you need to make the argument. You need to make the argument that immigrants are good for our economy. You need to make the argument that immigrants actually increase wages for the majority of Americans. There's two demographics that in some of the studies have shown to not benefit from immigration. The first one is people that do not have a college education. The second one is people who immigrated, like a decade ago. Those are the only two demographics that do not unambiguously benefit from immigration. And those two groups, at worst, had the same level of wages. They had wage stagnation. They didn't go down in wages. It's just the same. The fact that they don't talk about the concentration camps inevitably coming from mass deportations, like, there's no counter argument. It's amazing how you could be like, oh yeah, Trump's a fascist, but not talk about this. Like, hello. Yeah. Have we learned from history on what happens when you demonize and try to deport a group of people? 1930s Germany, the first thing that they tried to do was deport the Jews. That was the first thing they did.
Hey, and when they tried that, guess who didn't want them? It's funny looking at newspaper clippings and articles and stuff from the 1930s, and you saw the American people said, "Hey, would you be fine with accepting Jewish immigrants?"
Like, we capped them, right?
Yeah,
we capped how many 10,000 a year we would take or something like that.
It was like fuck no. It was like 8% approval to bring in Jewish immigrants, whatever. So we were. I mean, the Nazis learned a lot from us too. But the citizen. Oh, so. The one thing I like to talk about a lot is with immigration issues and stuff. We have John, you mentioned why one baby born here has certain rights and one baby born 10 feet away has the different rights or whatever based on the soil they're on. Is that when you look at the world stage, we don't really believe in human rights. What we seem to believe in are citizen rights. If you're a citizen of this country, you are entitled to be treated well-ish. Oh, go ahead, Keegan.
I don't know if I agree with that because, I mean, I agree on a certain level, but like, listen, this just shows like they don't care about illegal immigration. They don't want brown people entering the country. What's one of the most frustrating things to me about the right wing is like we are so honest with what we believe in. Like I'll go around and use the S word. I call myself a socialist. I am an anti-capitalist. I think that trans women are women. I am upfront with what I believe. And these conservatives are such cowards. They're such emotional, insecure people that they can't just be honest. They just don't want brown people entering the country. They're not talking about cracking down on Canadian immigrants or Russian immigrants or Ukrainian immigrants. It's about those brown people that they don't like. Just be honest.
The example you gave too is something we do talk about all the time, how they'll say that phrase that we all know is BS was like, well, I'm fine with immigration. It's illegal immigration that I have an issue with. And they say, okay, well, how about we make the pathway to citizenship more simple? No, sorry, we don't want that. Yeah, so if they actually made it legal, they still have a problem because they say it too, how they try their best to mask this. And they'll say, well, the culture is different or the religion is different, which is very funny when you're talking about like Central American immigrants, like 90% Christians. Like, no, it's not that. Yeah. It's not that. I don't think it's actually the religion part after all. And
it's amazing that these Christians don't read their Bible because the Bible is so clear that we're all God's children and that you should be you should view the alien as your neighbor. They quote Leviticus when they want to hate on gay people. They don't quote on Leviticus when they want to be accepting of immigrants. Kind of an interesting double standard. They're literally supporting the candidate who wants to persecute Christians, which is one of the defining characteristics of the Antichrist.
Yeah,
who talks about this? Why does no Democrat talk about this?
No, they don't. I've also noticed that you never really hear Republicans quote Jesus. You hear very little of that. You hear a lot of them quoting Leviticus or, Old Testament law and everything. Paul every now and then. Very few Jesus quotes. Because they quoted Jesus, they know they sound a lot like assholes. And I forgot about this altogether. But when you guys are talking about, so Trump doesn't technically have the authority to just ban birthright citizenship. That is a constitutional issue. Now, what's going to come up, Todd, you brought this up, how you don't trust the Supreme Court to do this. What conservatives, because you can wonder, like, hey, what's the argument here? How can you possibly go against the Constitution saying that people born in the United States or citizens of the United States? It's like one phrase in that amendment where it says that, subject to the, what does it say?
Jurisdiction thereof.
Yeah, subject to jurisdiction thereof. Yes. And so essentially what that means is like children of diplomats are not U.S. citizens if they're born here in the United States because they're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. So what conservatives argue is that, well, if you're here illegally, you're not subject to jurisdiction. Yes, you are. Of course you are. There's no illegal immigrant immunity.
If you're not subject to the jurisdiction, then what right do you have to remove them from our country?
Yeah, it's absurd. It's absurd. But that's what they're going to try to use. And Todd, I'm not wholly confident either that they'll actually interpret that the way, well, all of a sudden original intent of the writers doesn't seem to matter anymore. And I forgot who mentioned this in this round, but Keegan, you mentioned it before, that the conservatives are obsessed with taking the country back to a better time. And this better time they want is this past. Yeah, it was imagined at the time, like this Jeffersonian ideal of an agrarian society where everyone's a yeoman farmer. There's no national income tax. It is a society that not only didn't exist in the 19th century, it can't possibly exist in the modern world. There's a reason there are no libertarian first world countries, right? Because you need an actual society and a system put together of taxation to make it work. And you need a protection of human rights, which the conservatives are not terribly interested in, it seems.
But see, again, you see that it's just like the religion, right? Where they take the parts they like and they ignore the other parts. Thomas Jefferson believed that a corporation should not be able to live for more than 20 years and that the state should be able to give out the corporate death penalty for corporations that act unethically. He also believed that his ideal society was that most people were their own boss. The only kind of ideology that matches that in today's society are anarchists and socialists and anarcho-syndicalists, if you want to throw them in there as well.
Oh, we brought probably a syndicalist in a while. I also with Jefferson, how their idea of this like set in stone constitution, which Jefferson was 1,000,000% against. Yeah. He thought it was ridiculous. Like he said that the Constitution should be updated every 19 years, I think is what he said, because he said that people in the future, going by the laws that we write today, would be like a man wearing a child's coat. We can't possibly predict the future. All of a sudden, Jefferson's words don't seem all that important when that comes up.
Which also is just like, yeah, duh. You know, just like, yeah, that just makes sense. But here's TJ, I wanted to just throw back to something you said there, because I had an interesting interaction on Threads where I said the baby thing, where I was like, hey, I don't understand how you can have a baby born in, like, it's obvious discrimination. If you say a baby born in this room in the hospital gets rights, but a baby born in this room in the hospital doesn't, because it's parents, right? And someone replied to me and they're like, yeah, but like, aren't all, immigration laws discrimination? Like, aren't we just discriminating against people born in other countries if we don't let them here? And I'm just like, yes, we are. If you put equal rights, all men are created equal first, you cannot also hold that certain people get the right to live here because they were born here or their parents were born here, and others don't based on where they were born. That is not created equal. That's created with different rights, granted by you personally. And the problem is, I will let you respond, but I want to finish this thought, because the thing is, Americans so often we live in the belly of the beast, right? And this is why people like us just get driven mad. And we're like, look, all of the facts are on our side. Like, as Keegan said, all of immigration is incredibly beneficial to us. One of the reasons that we are the best economy in the entire world in terms of just pure productivity is because we also have the most immigration. It is an incredible boon to us that countries that are struggling with declining populations right now, like Japan, like North Korea, they would kill their mothers for the opportunity to have the types of immigration that we do. It is insane that we don't want this. But in order to...
Oh, John was on a roll too. Damn it.
It seems like people should have equal rights. We kind of would have to acknowledge that we've destroyed so much of the world that we actually have this position of privilege that just doesn't exist. I'm afraid that you might have lost me there. Did you guys hear all of that?
We lost you for like 2 seconds, but we got you there. Yeah.
But like, people would have to acknowledge this thing that we all know, but in order to continue with our lives in a sane manner, we just kind of have to ignore. And I think that a lot of people do intuitively understand that, immigration laws are restricting equal rights for people, but they tie themselves into pretzels to not acknowledge it, because then they'd have to acknowledge all of the other evils of the American empire, and they're just not ready to do that. So as much facts as I throw at them, it never seems to matter.
It's because politics and people's political views are largely based on emotions, fear, oversensitivity to disgust. These are the things that really matter more than facts. People just don't have the courage to question authority. Well, a lot of people don't have the courage to question authority, to question the system, to go, wow, maybe my country is not as good as I think it is. It's the root of all human evil, cowardice.
What do you think, Todd?
This immigration thing all comes down to white people represent 50-something% of Americans now. And whether or not they know it or not, most white people are conditioned to think that we need to be in control of everything, and we need to be the majority. And it makes total sense that we should have more immigrants in this country working. I look outside. There's 4 or 5 houses being built on my street. I walk out on my front porch, and there are undocumented immigrants putting the roofs on every single one of those houses. There are illegal immigrants framing all of those houses, pouring concrete in all of those houses. People are around here would complain about the price of housing. All right, and so we know that mass deportation, on top of being incredibly expensive if you can pull it off, incredibly probably socially awful, bloody, all that kind of stuff. On top of that, it will have economic impacts that are bad for the American people. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to what we've already said. These people are not white. If it was an economic thing, we would say, yes, bring more of them. Let's give them a tax ID as soon as we can and have them paying taxes and stimulating our economy even more than they already do. But instead, it is, I just don't like them, and I want to continue to be the majority in this country.
Yep. Yep.
See, I wish I could speak from experience like Todd, but I live in California. We don't have any immigration here.
Yeah, it's if people were honest, they would say that we hold these truths to be self-evident that certain men are created equal. That's what they actually believe. And John, you had mentioned that a lot of nations are running across this problem of the replacement rate for the native population, that families aren't having 2.5 kids anymore. They're having 1 or 1.5, and that the population is going to decline over the years, which is a capitalist nightmare. That's the last thing the capitalists want. In fact, if you guys want to nerd out sometime, look up the effects of the plague during the Middle Ages and how in Europe and how it slashed, I think, 1/3 of Europe's population. And all of a sudden, the workers had a lot more power because there was a lot fewer of them, and they could charge higher rates. It was one of a big economic engine at that time. That's the last thing people want, is fewer workers. And also, there would be a point where too few workers would actually really hurt the economy. But like you guys said, immigration is a great answer for this. But native populations are they go, oh no, this is so scary. We're going to be outpaced. And John, I thought it was interesting you mentioned Japan, because I haven't checked recently, which is funny because I actually had an article about Japan pulled up. I was going to try to weasel it in somehow, and you read my mind. I got it ready. But I don't think Japan has birthright citizenship. Like we're different from them in that way.
But most, it's like the North and South America have it. Most of the rest of the world doesn't.
Okay, yeah. So they're running across this problem too, where they're having families only having 1 kid or 1.5 kids, and they're worried about the future. So in the United States, what we're doing is like, well, we're going to outlaw abortion. That's going to solve the problem. I'm sure that'll take care of the issue for us. But there's a conservative party in Japan that had an even crazier idea. And I just wanted to share that with you guys. This is in Japan, calls for a ban for women to marrying after 25. I remember that's the guy's name, but his name Naoki Hayakuta, founder of the Conservative Party of Japan, angered many when he proposed uterus removal for women at the age of 30. He says that the leader of a Japanese Conservative Party has apologized for saying that the solution to the nation's population crisis would be to ban women from getting married after the age of 25 and have their uterus removed at 30. Writer and founder of the Conservative Party of Japan said that women should not be permitted to attend university from the age of 18, apparently, so they could focus their efforts on producing more babies. And another time in the show, John and I covered, now this isn't a law that's implemented in Japan, but we saw another one in Korea where their solution was to send girls to school 2 years younger than the boys. So that they said that the way they saw it, that, hey, a 16-year-old girl is more likely to date like a 17 or 18-year-old boy than a 15 or 16-year-old boy. So if we have the 16-year-old girls as high school seniors with the 18-year-old boys, they're more likely to get married, and they're more likely anything but challenging capitalism. Like, we spent years, by the way, declining the teen pregnancy rates in the first world, and now that the teen pregnancy rate is one of the major contributors to actually the population going down, because fewer teenage girls are having babies. This is what we fought for 50 years. Now that we finally got it, they're like, actually, no, let's trap women in marriages again. Let's essentially trick them into having babies or coerce them into doing it. Anything but challenging capitalism. So yeah, people will go to great rates or bring in immigration, one or the other.
You see the fascist kind of mindset where you should be devoted to the state or to the country.
Yep.
That women are not only property, but they're like brood mares for the state. It's a really sick. Dude, it sounds like the Taliban. It sounds like medieval times. I mean, it really is.
It's
shocking.
It's really interesting because I've looped around on this because for a while I was like, oh, I don't think the real reason that Republicans want to implement XYZ policies because of racism or sexism. I was like, I don't think the real reason that Republicans want to outlaw abortion is to control women. But the more you fucking read and the more you learn, I'm sure that the average normie Republican doesn't think at this level, but like it all seems to tie together. Like it seems to tie together that, yeah, native birth rates are declining. And if you look at where they're declining in, it's not women over 25. They've barely declined in women over 25. It's women, teenage girls, and women 18 to 25. Those are the vast majority, probably 80% of the decline in birth rates is those two groups. And how do you get those people? How do you increase your native population? Because you need an increased native population in order to have that in-group that is going to keep you in power against the out. And, you know, you start reducing abortion law. You get rid of abortion. You start encouraging women to not go to university and not have a career and be stay at home and pump out more babies so you can have more little white babies that are going to support you. And it suddenly becomes very clear. And I know there isn't just one brain doing this, but it very much is obvious that a lot of these issues at the top level are increase the domestic supply of white babies so that they continue to vote for the fascists and keep them in power. And if we allow this to actually become a pluralistic society of different ethnic groups, those people aren't going to be able to stay in power. So we gotta bang our heads against a wall and hurt a lot of people in order to keep it that way.
Hard agree. All right. We only got like 25 minutes left here.
Here,
so
let me help you segue. Are you ready? All right.
Go for it.
Actually, the reason that our birth rates are declining is because of the everyone's becoming transgender.
There you go. I helped you segue, right?
You know, the funny thing is, that's what they would actually say. I guarantee you they say that. Yeah, they would say, I have heard Republicans say this, that the reason that we have this declining birth rate is because of the queer community. They wouldn't say queer community. They say something a lot worse or whatever. Like this tiny fraction. Oh, and they would point, you know what they would do? They would say that, well, I looked at Gen Z stats and it says that 35% of them are queer. And say, okay, that covers a wide spectrum.
Yeah, it's like most of them are bi. It's like 98% are bi.
Yeah,
of that 30% or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a deflection, but they will talk about the trans issue and how this is I'm so disappointed, honestly, in this trans thing. So what we wanted to talk about was Mike Johnson, who amazingly enough, like has actually survived and is looking like he's gonna stay Speaker of the House. Like I remember when he was first elected, I was like, okay, this guy's not gonna last 10 minutes. He's still there, and he doesn't seem to have an army that's clamoring for him to step down like Kevin McCarthy did. But the House Republicans have been faced themselves with a little problem here. We had our first elected trans representative. I can't remember her name. At least I can find it here. I don't see. Because someone can find that for me. Sarah McBride.
Delaware. People from Delaware aren't really actually real. So
yeah, no,
they're just corporations. It's not. They can't be a real person.
It is one of those states you do forget about, you know, in Delaware. Joe Biden's from Delaware, if that tells you anything. But yeah, Sarah McBride is the first trans woman representative that we know of, at least, like an openly trans woman and representative. And this has caused a big problem for the Republicans. They think this is a major issue because what in heaven's name are we supposed to do with the bathrooms? What's the only thing that they seem to care about? So what's her name?
Again,
Nancy.
Republicans being creepy about, genital related things. Like
They
sex
cannot
creepiness,
stop.
man.
They cannot stop talking about people's genitals, and especially children's genitals. They seem to be very fascinated with this topic, and it's kind of dark. But fear not, folks. Good people of the United States. Mike McCarthy, our fearless leader, in a statement, the speaker told reporters, "For anyone who doesn't know my established record on the issue, let me be unequivocally clear." Unequivocally queer. That'd be funny. That would be so funny. That would be great. All right. Let me be unequivocally clear. A man is a man, a woman is a woman. I also believe that what scripture teaches and what I just said, but believe me, we treat everybody with dignity. We will do our best, for all those things at the same time. But Mike McCarthy has pretty much said, no, we are putting in a absolute ban. Oh, sorry, Mike Johnson, but we are putting in an absolute ban. No biological men in female bathrooms. And Nancy Mace has been on a tear on this. Like Representative Nancy Mace, I can't remember the number. It was like she has tweeted 262 times about this issue since the election. 262 times. That was of this morning. I'm sure it's more as of now. And I don't know. I'm beginning to suspect that the price of eggs isn't actually something she really cares about. Like, I think that she cares about something a whole lot more. It seems to be something a lot worse. Did you catch this, Todd? What do you think? What are you gonna say? I know.
I just, whenever somebody starts talking about this stuff on the right, like I immediately know they're not a serious person. Like this is the thing that we can call them weird. We can call them. I mean, it's not. You can't exaggerate that point enough. I mean, bathrooms are for taking a shit, and that's it. Like I don't understand how we continue to be, and they will be like the left is obsessed with this issue, and I love the way that this newly elected representative has been completely dismissive of all of this, like is not getting involved. Like her stance is like, I will follow the rules. I'm not here this is not why I'm here. I'm here to be a serious representative and deal with the serious issues that my constituents in Delaware sent me here to deal with, while the Republicans froth at the mouth about peeping into people's bathroom stalls. Like, I don't know. How do we move past this issue?
We don't like it's they won't let us move past this issue because you're right. It's weird to give a shit. Like, first of all, how do you know that the person you're in the bathroom with is whatever actual biological sex that you?
Oh, that's not what matters. What matters is making trans people's lives as miserable as possible.
Yeah, well, yes, Keegan, obviously that's a thing, but like if we are even addressing their argument in good faith, assuming it's a good faith argument, how do you know that the person in the stall next to you is, even when I'm in a stall, and especially if I'm a woman, I'm always in a stall, right? Like, you don't even know, like, you just see their shoes. Like, that's it. How the hell would you ever know if they're a man or a woman, and how would that make you uncomfortable? I actually read this today when doing a little research. We used to not have, segregated bathrooms between men and women. They were just all the reason they're called restrooms.
Different kind of segregation.
Okay, we did used to have segregated bathrooms. So yeah, between men and women, right? The reason they're called restrooms is because there was this idea that became popular that women needed their own room to rest, because if they're out in public instead of being in the house, it's just very stressful for them. Their real place is in the kitchen, and if they're out in public, they're going to need this rest room to go to. The entire reason that bathrooms are segregated in the first place is because of extremely fucking sexist beliefs. And it's really funny to see these women go like, oh, well, this is my right as a woman to have this segregated bathroom that was originally forced upon me by people who were incredibly sexist and hated me. It's really an insane thing. And the only way to enforce it is to check people's genitals. How the fuck else would you? And that's fucking weird. I'm sorry, bro. It's fucking weird. Just be normal. That's it. It's not that hard.
I have two really big points to make. One of them is a psychology one, which I want to get to in a second. But there's the taking this seriously, right? Let's just pretend that this is a serious issue, right? So, because they're going to come after like trans bathrooms on a national level, kind of a thing. Now, first off, I do love whenever you're like, here's a trans man and he's like buff AF, And it's just like, you want this person in the women's bathroom, and you basically trick the dumb conservative into thinking, no, dude, this should be in the men's bathroom. It's like, yes, I agree. This is a trans man.
Yeah.
But, you know, if trans women were actually a threat to women in the bathroom, guess what? Fox News and Ben Shapiro and the rest of right-wing hate media would have made the name of that trans person who hurt a cisgendered woman a national story for a month. Every one of us would know the name of this person. Guess what? That hasn't happened yet. You know, to justify this discriminatory and bigoted policy, you'd have to have data showing a nationwide trend of trans women being a threat in women's bathrooms. They aren't. Because allowing trans people in the bathroom of your gender not only doesn't harm anyone, but actually reduces harm.
A lot.
This really reminds me of, like, we can't have black women in the white women's bathroom. They'll be scary and threatening. It's like the exact same rhetoric, dude. Like, oh my God. Listen, there is actual harm in forcing trans women into men's spaces. In prison, for example, trans women are the target of so much more sexual violence. But conservatives are okay with that.
So
a lot of
that's the
conservatives
thing.
like this because, and just one more sentence, okay? They think trans people are inherently bad and should be punished for who they are. And I'd love to talk about the psychology of that in just a minute. Go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, put a picture of this woman up, and look at all the Republican men in the House and say, so you guys want to go on record that you want her in your bathroom? Like, that's the argument they're making. You want her in your bathroom. The second thing I was going to say was, I can't remember, what was the last sentence you said? It sparked something in me.
Well,
they want to hurt people, I think is what you said, right?
They think the trans people are inherently bad.
Oh,
yeah. So that's the thing, like, that with these picks, with all these cabinet picks, every conservative I know has posted pictures of Pete and pictures of people in Biden's cabinet who are part of the LGBTQ plus community, and been like, don't talk to us about how bad Trump's picks are. Look at these people. Meaning, at base, if you have appointed a person who is not straight, they are automatically bad and unqualified, and the rapist white guy is better than them. That's where this all stems from. I agree with that. That just trans people are just bad, immoral, awful people. End of story for these people. That's their stance.
Keegan, that's a great segue for you to talk about the psychology of it, because I'm interested in what you're going to have to say there.
So for anyone that just joined, you can look up at Keegan Tatum on TikTok, Instagram.
Love the plug-in. Love the plug-in. More of our guests need to do that.
You will hear a lot about political psychology. It's my thing. So the studies are unambiguously clear that that transphobia's main source is an oversensitivity to feelings of disgust. Again, these conservatives, so emotions-based. So basically, like, transphobes, they just don't want trans people to be open. They either want them to be in the closet or worse. They just don't want trans people to exist, because when they see a trans person, or they think of a trans person, the disgust mechanism in their brain starts firing off, right? So think about this. They value not feeling that disgust over the freedom and happiness of their fellow Americans. Selfish, utterly selfish, and emotional. I just can't stand the projection that conservatives do. It's like, oh, the left is all feels-based. Like, really? Really? It doesn't matter that trans people who simply have, trans people that have one person close to them that is supportive of their gender identity, that subset of trans people, their suicidality is basically the same as the rest of the human population. Having one supportive person around you that's a main, like a parent, for example, cuts it by, I think it's 94 or 95% suicidality rates. Okay, that doesn't matter. They want trans people to be in the closet because that leads to worse health outcomes. What matters to conservatives is if you are someone who triggers a negative emotion in them, fear, for example, when it comes to immigrants, then you need to be punished. They want to hurt you for their emotions. And of course, they're not going to take responsibility for their own feelings, because scapegoating is a lot easier than self-reflection for the mentally lazy conservative.
Yeah, that's 1,000% true. And Todd, you asked show the picture of Sarah McBride. That's Sarah McBride, and someone would look a little bit out of place in a men's room. I think we can all agree on. And years ago, I had this happen when I was at a YMCA to work out, and I was just in the locker room, and I turned around, and there's this lady there. I jumped, like it was. I mean, that's the last thing I expected, and I was like, "What is happening?" And I just kind of just stood there, and and then I realized, oh, it took me a while. I was like, oh, okay, I figured out what happened. I'm in a red state, and I know that this is probably the rule that you have to go to the bathroom of your sex assigned at gender. And this was a woman. Like in a million years, no one would ever guess that this was a bio. But she was in the locker room every morning, and it was strange. Like it was fine, it was something we could live with, I guess. But she shouldn't have to do that. So like ostracize herself that way. And like you guys mentioned, that puts her in danger. Being around a bunch of naked guys all the time is not a safe place. It's just not, And so the fact that conservatives don't care about that, I'm so glad you brought that up, Keegan, because this isn't about, once again, it's not about morality at all. If it was about morality, you could show the stats that, hey, when you have this one action that leads to more people being harmed, whether it's a bathroom issue or not, or punishing people or ostracizing them leads to them harming themselves more, doesn't matter. It matters because they like it. They like it. It's good. That this kind of behavior should be looked down upon in society. It's forcing you into a corner until you no longer exist. And there's actually a study, Keegan, I know you'll be familiar with this, that there was a study about conservatives and disgust, that conservatives have a much easier trigger rate when it comes to being disgusted. It's 1,000 years ago, there was this art exhibit called Piss Christ, which essentially was a crucifix in a jar of urine. And I remember conservatives were super mad about this. It was just some fucking art exhibit somewhere. And across the country, conservatives lost their mind. Right? Do you remember that, Todd? Did you ever see that?
No, but I can picture it.
Of course you can. Of course you can. These folks spent the better part of 3 years complaining and boycotting and yelling to their talk radio shows that Colin Kaepernick took a knee when the Magic song played. Like that's how fucking fragile these conservatives are. And what you guys all mentioned it, but it's something that I love to do whenever conservatives talk about how there's no such thing as a trans person, or trans people, they're bizarre. You can always say, okay, how do you know I'm a man? My favorite question. I love asking this. How do you know I'm a man? Because unlike I always tell them this, like, unlike your mom, you've never seen my genitals. And if I gave you like a blood sample and a microscope, you wouldn't know where to start to find my chromosomes. You'd have no fucking clue. So how do you know I'm a man? And the answer is you don't. You don't. By your definition, at least, that a man is like it's tied to biological essentialism. You don't. You just go off the social cues that I give off and my appearance. That's it. And that's all we're saying. That is all we're fucking saying, and they can't seem to grasp it. I know we've made some great points here, but I do want to pull up Nancy Mace, because I think she has some pretty clever rebuttals. So
Did
let's
you
see
say
what
Nazi Mace? I'm sorry.
No, I know, right? Let's all right. Let's see what she has to say.
Hey everyone, I seem to blow up the radical left last night. I filed a resolution that would ban biological men from women's private spaces on the Hill. I'm just getting started, and I've already nowhere near stopping, and the death threats that I'm receiving now aren't going to stop me either. So I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Come at me, bro. Or bro.
Okay.
I'm not going to take threats for an answer. I'm going to fight like hell for women and girls to keep men out of women's private spaces, to include bathrooms, restrooms, locker rooms, changing rooms, you name it. You are not welcome.
Once again, I'll let you guys chime in, but once again, Republicans were elected to bring down the cost of eggs. I just want to make that very clear, and this is what they're spending their time on.
So first of all, I want to say the thing you mentioned about how do you know I'm a man, I love taking that a step further and saying, how do you know God was a man? If being a man is determined by your biological genitals, God doesn't have those. So why do you call him he? And that both pisses them off and is entirely accurate. It's a wonderful retort. But also what she's saying there, it's so funny because everyone has their own bathroom. Every representative has their own bathroom. This is such a non-issue that you're making an issue out of. I like, who cares? Again, if you care about this, you're a fraud. And if you claim to care about protecting women and children, but you vote for the guy who is found liable of sexual assault, if you would have voted to confirm Matt Gaetz after seeing the House Ethics Committee report, if you are okay with Donald Trump having multiple people in his cabinet with sexual assault accusations in their past, I'm sorry, I'm not even going to be able to take you seriously when you say a trans woman who looks like a woman, who is indistinguishable from every other woman, is putting girls in danger because they're in the bathroom. It's utter insanity. It is completely incoherent. And the average person I can forgive, but you have a fucking responsibility to people, bro. Like you need to stop being so stupid. I'm sorry.
I wanted to pull this up too, that this is a post from Nancy Mace, and this took, when was this? This is June 4th, 2021. And I wanted to, oh wait, let me pull it up here, share what she said about this, a similar topic here. Let's see what she has to say. And she says here that she's like, the pandemic kept all of us from fully celebrating Pride here in Low County in 2020. But hopefully, as we begin to open back up, we can all come together to celebrate the challenges of our LGBTQ plus has overcome and the bright future ahead. Hashtag Pride Month, hashtag Pride 2021. So, 3 short years ago, by the way, if anyone wondering, the T in LGBTQ stands for trans. I'm just, in case you guys weren't aware of that. So, listen, I know that I am far too old to believe in the fairy tale that politicians have actual principles and actual things. I do not believe that the person that wrote that 3 years later, it has this deeply held belief that trans people are a problem. I don't. I think that she's a political opportunist. Like, honestly, if you're in politics, you are an opportunist. You kind of have to be, honestly. And it's just a lot more gross that way. Because listen, I've said plenty of times that I can't imagine that there's a check big enough that would make me do right-wing content, but I just can't. But maybe there is. I don't know, but I don't think there is one.
There's certainly a check big enough, TJ.
Yeah,
Let's be honest. There's always a check big enough.
Yeah, listen, folks, if you do ever see like a right-wing turn, just know I don't mean it. I don't mean it at all. I'm doing it for the $10 billion that I was paid for this, whatever. But like, I just can't. A congressional salary, hell, a congressional seat would not be enough. It's just not enough.
Power.
Yeah, the power. It's just like I couldn't. I don't know. Not a switch that massive to like just be an open, proud bigot. I mean, it works for a lot of people. I see it happen right in front of me, but it doesn't make it any less depressing when I do.
I just want to say, like, this is why we need gender studies in our schools, because there's so many people that think, oh, dude, this trans thing is so new. The people only started being trans in 2014. It's like, no. In India, there's been a third gender for like hundreds of years. In North America, on many societies, there were people called two-spirits, which are people who are what we would label as trans. I remember I took an early modern English history course. So it was, 16th, 17th century. We had a whole discussion about who would be more dangerous. And we didn't use the words trans, but it's effectively who would be more dangerous, trans men or trans women. And what's funny is trans women are perceived as scarier now because of the disgust mechanism in people's brains, right? They think about, ooh, I don't want to have sex with somebody with the PP. Or they're really turned on by it, and then they're disgusted with themselves, and then there's a self-hate angle. I really recommend looking up the map of trans porn searches. You'll learn a lot there. But back, a few hundred years ago, trans men were considered more threatening to the social order because these are women trying to undo the patriarchy, and they're trying to step up in society by being men, and it's just kind of funny. I don't know. I mean, it's terrible, but it's kind of funny. Like, just conservatives, just all feelings based.
And it's funny, like, you're going to say something, Todd?
Yeah, have you guys ever watched All in the Family, Archie Bunker?
Yeah, Archie Bunker, yeah.
I mean, if you ever get a chance, you get, I watch it sometimes, and it's like the current political reality 50 years ago. We're just Archie Bunker was a huge transphobe 50 something years ago. Like,
Yeah.
the talking points of Archie Bunker are the talking points of MAGA today. Exactly. Like, not changed at all. It blows my mind. And people here who love Archie Bunker, who love All in the Family, who talk about it and act like Archie Bunker is this hero, and are like, yeah, this trans stuff is new. It's like, do you even watch the show? It's the same issues that from then, unchanged completely.
Yeah.
Not to mention they have zero media literacy to understand that Archie Bunker is the butt of the joke. It's incredible how little media literacy conservatives have. Keegan, I want to address one thing that you said earlier about how it's about it being separate, that they don't have to think about it. They don't have to get there. That's why they say, oh, this is a new thing, because it started getting put in mainstream media. Before that, an equal amount of trans people exist, but they didn't see them, so they just didn't give a shit and thought that they didn't. And now that they're forced to see it, oh, that disgust is bleeping off in the back of their head and going like, oh, this is all of a sudden coming around. No, it's just all of a sudden coming into your bubble. And the other thing to tie into what you said before, it's right there in the steps of fascism. That one of the first books that the Nazis burned were at a sexology institute, and a lot of them dealing with transgenderism. It is a hallmark of fascist regimes to alienate the queer community, to attack sexual perversion as an attack on the rest of society. Every single fascist regime you'll see does this. And it's just another example of how this sometimes feels like something you can forgive a lot of people for, but the people at the top know what the fuck they're doing.
The Nazis believed that homosexuality and transgenderism were social contagions that could be spread, that if you talked about it, more people would become it. Again, social contagion, you catch it. And Republicans view it very similarly. I would recommend Nazi persecution of homosexuals on Wikipedia, and you can go into their views and go, just replace the word Nazi with conservative or Republican, and then replace the word German with Americans, and it reads just like today. And it shows you that if you really want to understand politics, you have to understand human psychology, because our psychology has not advanced much in the 12,000 years that civilization has existed, and it's why we have the same recurring issues. It's not just, oh, people don't learn from history. It's that we just haven't evolved enough as a species.
Yeah, it's all that's true. What you guys, Todd and John were talking about, the media literacy thing. The Archie Bunker thing is a great example of this, that this happens all the time, where people create media as a critique of something bad. People love the media and take the complete wrong. We overestimate people's ability to understand even blatant satire. Like, my favorite example of this is Starship Troopers. If you guys
going to say Starship Troopers,
are you going to talk about Elon Musk?
No, I was like, what did he? Oh, did he say something about Starship Troopers?
Yeah, no, he literally he posted it is a picture of when the trooper is like going up to the alien, and she's like, he's scared.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, it was him as Doge as the human, and like the government bureaucracy as the alien. I'm like, you didn't like how do you not understand the movie? You have billions of dollars. Pay someone to explain it to you. Like, oh my god.
He's wearing a Nazi outfit.
He's wearing a Nazi uniform.
It couldn't be more obvious.
Listen, I didn't see Starship Trooper until I was an adult. I was an adult, and I had heard about this. I heard that the movie came out. Audiences, they went to see it, and they thought it was a brainless action space flick. And I was like, all right, sure. Then I watched the movie, and my jaw was on the floor for an hour, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Because if you haven't seen Starship Troopers, folks, do yourself a favor and watch it. I swear to God, it seems like a movie that was made by someone from today with a time machine who went back to 1994 and said, hey, this is what's going to happen after 9/11. This is exactly how, and they didn't see it. And if you missed these subtle criticisms that all the teachers served in the military were missing limbs and shit and saying, yeah, this is great. You should all go out and fight the bug creatures.
Yeah.
They have a map of the galaxy and it shows Earth over here. And on the far side of the galaxy, the other planet, it's like, we need to keep ourselves safe from these aliens over here. And it's like, if that wasn't enough for you, like they mentioned, the military wears like black head to toe SS uniforms. And it's like, folks, I don't know what to tell you. Like, if you can't understand what this is trying to say, I don't know what hope there is for you in the world. And Keegan, I think you mentioned
it's not just that the officers wear the Nazi uniforms, but the military, like the average soldier, they wear uniforms that are reminiscent of what a bug looks like, and it's meant to show we are the same as this. I would really, really, really recommend the Red Letter Media review of Starship Troopers and the Knowing Better review of Starship Troopers. Knowing Better is a channel that I would recommend to literally everyone.
Oh, I just said Red Letter Media has some fantastic Star Wars prequel interview. For those who haven't seen it, those are really good. That's amazing. And
the origins of the video essay on YouTube.
One thing I like, I think Keegan, you mentioned this, that going through and replacing like Americans and Nazis and seeing how the language is the same. Another thing I like to do is pulling up. You guys can check this if you want anytime, listeners. Go ahead and Google the terms Hartford Press Ku Klux Klan party platform. Hartford Press Ku Klux Klan party platform. And you will pull up on the first link the party platform from the Ku Klux Klan, which was an active political party until the early 2000s, honestly, like running people for office. That maybe they still do. But the 1999 platform, that's like the David Duke era platform. Read it. The entire platform. It says stuff like the transsexual community has infiltrated our schools. The schools, by the way, are just pipelines for socialists and communists. We need the cities have been taken over by violent criminal gangs, and they're trying to take guns away from white people. We need to outlaw abortion. The Klan platform is the same, not similar. It is the same as the Republican Party platform today. I have no clue why anyone running for office as Democrat doesn't open every debate with that. Just bring up the Klan platform, read it to the audience, and ask the Republican why does this sound so familiar to what you're saying? I don't know why, because like we act
They'll
like
bite the bullet too, TJ. They will bite the bullet. They will bite the bullet on national television. They've gotten to that point.
There's nothing different from it. This is why I always talk about how I'm tired of the respectability shit. I'm tired of the gentleman's agreements and shit like that. No, the Republican Party is not a serious organization that has ideas we need to respect. It is the same shit that was propagated that we said we defeated in the 1960s. No, it's the same stuff, and I'm tired of pretending otherwise. So yeah, that's my rant on that.
Did you say 1960s or 1860s?
I know, right? Doesn't yeah.
Or 1760s. It just happens every 100 years.
Yeah, it's like yeah, I don't know. It's insanity here. But all right, we are. Oh, hey, look at John landed the plane perfectly. 8:33. Okay, folks. So Keegan, you won't know this, but when we end the show, we kind of do a little tie up here. John will thank everyone for watching, and then he'll pass it off to you two, and you can plug your content, and I'll close everything up.
All right. Thank you guys so much. You made it to the end of the video. You are once again our favorite viewer. I know I said that to someone else last time, but this time, no, it is you. If you enjoyed our show today and want to know where you can find our wonderful guests, I'll throw it to them. Superman Todd, how about you tell people where they can find you?
Hey, I'm Superman Todd. I'm just on TikTok as Superman Todd 2. So go give me a follow for just to listen to a normal guy who's progressive in Kentucky to give my thoughts on how crazy the world is.
And Keegan, where can our guests find you if they don't want to look for a normal guy?
They want to look for an autistic weirdo. Yeah. You can find me at Keegan Tatum, KeeganTatum. TikTok is the best place. It's the most up-to-date place for all of my short content. Instagram, I also post everything from TikTok onto Instagram and onto YouTube as well. YouTube might be a little bit behind on the short videos, but they are also long-form videos such as why are older people more conservative and why are what is the psychology of transphobia. Almost all of my videos are based in the psychology of politics. It's the thing I'm an expert in, and it's a really interesting topic. So hope you join me.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, fellas. If you're looking to find my content, some good stuff on TikTok and YouTube and on Left Wing, just give me a visit. I'm your man or woman. I guess you don't know. You haven't seen my chromosomes or anything like that, but we'll find out. I'll catch you guys later.